media community. I would like to welcome everyone to today's thought-provoking webinar presented by our friends at Samba TV. My name is Jay Wolf. I am the Vice President of the 212 NYC organization. 2020 and the current pandemic has undoubtedly brought unprecedented change to our industry, especially the way that marketers reach consumers. Between OTT, CTV, DSPs, and all the fun three-letter acronyms that all of us say probably every day, navigating complexities in the TV advertising and measurement landscape has become our new normal. Solving for viewership fragmentation and understanding these shifts are essential to marketers succeeding in this new world. Today, we're thrilled to have our friends at Samba TV and Anheuser-Busch to discuss how to overcome these TV measurement challenges with modern and effective solutions. I'd like to introduce Katie Barrett from Samba to help lead this important conversation. All yours, Katie.
Thanks, Jay. Really excited to be here today talking with all of you. I run the client partnership relationship with Anheuser-Busch at Samba, and I'm very excited to have Jackie Northacker to talk with us today, as well as Mark Bouget, who leads our audience team at Samba. Mark, do you want to kick it away?
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Mark Bouget. Thank you, Katie. I'm the SVP and Head of Audience Products at Samba TV, where we work closely with marketers to allow them to leverage our exclusive TV audiences to run effective campaigns across connected television, mobile, tablet, and desktop. Thank you to the 212 community, Anheuser-Busch, and everyone that's joining us today. We're very excited to talk about TV measurement. For today's webinar, we're going to start off by sharing some industry trends. We'll talk a little bit about Samba and how we play into TV measurement. And then I'll hand it back over to Katie to present reach and frequency. And then from there, we'll follow up with a conversation with Jackie to discuss Anheuser-Busch's measurement strategies. So today, viewers are having more choices of where and what to watch like never before. There are hundreds of streaming services that are now available today globally, and new platforms like HBO Max and Peacock have just launched this year. Seeing these legacy TV networks taking the approach to double down on the streaming capabilities and interest further indicates that this shift is irreversible. So now let's take a look at how this and the pandemic are impacting linear TV. Well, we all know that linear TV is on the decline. More and more households are cutting the cord and shifting towards streaming and connected television. Looking at Samba's data, we saw a slight decrease in overall linear TV reach in June compared to last year. We've also seen the amount of content consumption increase across the board this year as a result of the pandemic. With linear TV, consumption actually increased by 39% in June compared to June of last year, which indicates that the number of households who are watching are spending more time watching. Samba's data shows this growth in consumption has stemmed from cable news as well as children's programming. And this makes sense as viewers tune in to get coverage on the pandemic and the election, and more families with children are staying home sheltering in place. Taking a look at the streaming trends, the rapid gains in viewership we're experiencing this year are truly unprecedented. Samba data showed that over 255% increase in streaming viewership since March. With Disney Plus hitting 50 million subscribers in April, 3 years faster than expected this year, to Peacock's 10 million subscribers, viewers who have been social distancing are latching onto the new platforms in ways that legacy models simply couldn't prepare for. So what does this all mean for marketers? Well, it's now imperative that everyone involved in TV, from the networks to advertisers, agencies, as well as the technology platforms, they all need to understand what kinds of programming are winning and losing in this new world, as well as when and how viewers are tuning in. This need for understanding, along with the massive growth in viewership and further fragmentation of audiences across delivery formats, has pushed our industry faster into the ACR era. Some of you might be wondering, what is ACR technology? So I love this topic because it's really at the bedrock that everything Samba TV does. ACR technology, or automated content recognition, provides us with an agnostic view of all viewership and ad exposure from smart TVs integrated with Samba's TV tech. It works by having technology that sits inside our 35 million global smart televisions which analyze and understand all of the viewing that is taking place on the TV. Whether it's coming in through a gaming device, OTT device, traditional linear, whatever the path that gets that content onto your screen, our technology is processing it and understanding it in an opt-in fashion. For consumers, this technology can be opted in to power the navigation, search, and discovery, and many more features in Samba-enabled televisions. On the business side, which is how we work with Anheuser-Busch and other brands, this data enables better advertising solutions. And it doesn't stop with the television. We also understand how this data connects to the digital world through our device graph, which is matched to our TVs on a one-to-one basis, creating the connective tissue that sits between the myriads of ways which we now consume content via our smart TVs, as well as other digital devices. This all allows us to provide deduplicated targeting and measurement across these platforms. To make sense of all this data, we have created a research panel and analytics dashboard that my colleague Katie will get into in just a bit. All this said, the more that viewers watch, the more there is to measure. The industry is extremely eager to have these insights as quickly as possible, and ACR has now become the viable, scaled source of truth for TV measurement. I'm now going to hand it over to Katie Barrett, who will now explain the reach and frequency problem.
Thanks so much, Mark. So if you guys look at the screen, this is a common viewing scenario, really common for a lot of us during COVID. Someone's at home, they're watching their smart TV, they're also on their digital phone. And if you're looking at this through a single ad server, this is going to tell you that this is a reach of 2 and a frequency of 1, but that is completely the opposite. In fact, it's a reach of 1 and frequency of 2. And this really shows the need to have holistic measurement solutions. And in order to do that, you really need to have TV data that's based on actual viewership, and that needs to be combined with a device graph that allows you to deduplicate what's going on in the house across TV, OTT, and digital. And here at Samba, if you go to the next slide, please, we have taken our ACR footprint that Mark has talked about and our digital device graph, and we pared it down to mirror the US Census and all 210 DMAs for your age, for geo, for ethnicity, and income. And this has created a panel that allows us to project out to the US population in a fully representative way for modern day viewership. And so to kind of give you a step back of what that means, it means the size of our panel means every single TV equals about 100 people rather than 5,000, which is what we've seen in legacy panels. And that allows us to report back on a lot more smaller channels. Additionally, we built our panel to reflect the types of modern viewership that are going on today, such as cord cutters, cord shavers, light TV viewers, in addition to those heavy linear TV viewing folks who drive up the frequency curves for our brand advertisers. And so that has led us to the next slide, please, to build that analytic dashboard that we're going to talk about with Anheuser-Busch in just a second. I'm really excited about this because when you look at this dashboard, if you are a data geek like me, this is data nirvana. It's easy to understand. It all comes together in a near real-time dash that's easy to read. And what this is a culmination of all of those things that we've talked about: our ACR, our device graph, and our representative panel being pulled into this dashboard that both brands, agencies, and everyone else who touches their business is able to see and use this data on a daily basis. And this allows you to see your reach and frequency by partner, by platform, as well as by demographic. And so with that, because this dashboard does allow us to answer some of the bigger questions I think that our industry is plagued with today, such as what does the overfrequency of my linear TV buy look like? Or how am I driving incrementality in OTT? Or even like, how do I even start to use these types of advanced analytics for my clients? And so on that note, I'm very, very excited to be here with Jackie Northacker, Digital Media Manager at Anheuser-Busch. Samba and Jackie have worked together for some time, and her team focuses on in-house social and programmatic buying. Jackie, do you want to tell us a little bit more about your role and what you do at Anheuser-Busch?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Katie. I am also stoked to be here today. My name is Jackie Northacker. I'm the Digital Media Manager for Michelob Ultra, as well as our portfolio e-commerce, and I lead all digital buying for the brand. My team is responsible for all digital media strategy, as well as biddable buying execution across all Anheuser-Busch brands.
Great. Thank you so much. And, you know, you guys were, at the onset of 2020, we talked a lot about what your learning agenda was going to look like. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that, and then also about some of the challenges your team is looking to solve?
Yeah, absolutely. So connected TV has been definitely something that AV has been involved with for some time now. Basically, the challenge that we were trying to find and solve was, what do we forecast for our media investments between linear TV and connected TV? We wanted to understand, where were there pockets of opportunity to scale up? What was a true incremental reach that we were getting from linear TV as well as from connected TV? And also, just with connected TV in general, what is our cost per unique impression? That started becoming really, really keen for us to find out. And while we were evaluating linear TV, we found that while CPM, as we know, it's super cheap to reach people, it's not necessarily cost effective from a cost per unique impression standpoint. We also really want to understand what pubs and networks were driving the most reach for our business. Obviously, we know we work with a ton. The end goal for us would be to basically correlate incremental reach to those unique impressions that would drive sales for our brands.
Thanks. And then, knowing that you were already thinking about CTV and measurement, and you've been in this space for some time, how did the pandemic and just the overall shifts that we've seen in consumer behavior affect your strategy for CTV?
That's, man, this year has been tough for digital marketers, or just anybody in general. So as you know, CTV has been, a big part of all of our media planning for programmatic for a long time now. And, we've always invested heavily there. We're an omni-channel company. We, invest in audio and native display, video, and CTV. But really, earlier this year, we were kind of talking about all these different challenges with linear TV and connected TV, and we really wanted to better understand streaming behaviors, how it's going to change over the next, 5 years, and then boom, all of a sudden COVID hit. So basically, all the things that we were planning for in a couple years from now, all of a sudden we needed to answer those questions now. So the pandemic honestly has been really a true catalyst in what we are already working towards. We see that, summer streaming is at an all-time high, as you showed earlier. People are moving more so to AVOD faster than ever. And while we do understand that linear TV, and it's really important to us from a share of voice standpoint, we wanted to understand how CTV also would be, basically impacted over the next 6 months. So we started basically changing our media plans to reflect and pivot as soon as COVID hit, so that we could reach consumers where they were at. People were streaming on their couch. They wanted to feel safe. They wanted to be at home. So we needed to make sure that our business continued to succeed in these really uncertain times, and make sure that our ads were being, reached, our consumers were being reached by our ads on their couches through connected television.
Yeah, I think when we think back to the beginning of this year, we all started the beginning of this year thinking about a lot of things which have changed, right? And one of them for us marketers was that CTV is an important place to be, and that the viewership is definitely trending in this direction. But what we've seen from the pandemic is this behavior has been tremendously escalated. So taking that into account, how did that impact your learning agenda for CTV and TV measurement?
Yeah, so I would say for the most part, we were looking at different consolidations of partners. There's a lot of partners in this space that can measure reach and frequency, but we wanted to make sure that we picked the right one. So we used our DSPs as a good central place, and also Samba TV as well as some other partners, to start looking at how do we manage this frequency between all of our CTV buys and do it effectively, so that we're not hitting consumers over and over again with the same message, and making sure that, where's that sweet spot for frequency in the television space. So yeah, we basically came up with this awesome list of partners, and from there we decided to move forward with a study during our high season, which is the summer, where everyone loves to drink and consume beer.
That is true, especially this year. I attest to that. I think it's fair to say that Anheuser-Busch's learning agenda has been interesting for us, as well as all of your other measurement partners that you've brought together, which has been a really amazing learning experience. You popped open the hood, put us in the same room or Zoom together to figure things out. Do you want to talk more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's been really fun. I would say, as you know, we've been working together with a couple of other tech partners, just kind of collaborating together and trying to solve these really big picture, ideas. And we're all trying to figure out the same solutions at the same time, right? So I came from the tech side. I used to work at Adobe, and then now I've moved over to the brand side. I've really learned the value of integrating partners for the better of the business. basically came up with this, like, and I believe in this holistic approach for working with partners together, because it helps to expose areas of improvement where products could be better. It also pushes me as an advertiser to ask better questions and to push products to you know, add new features. For example, I geek out with all product enhancements and features, as you know. And I think also, you know, we are leaders in this space, and coming to the table together allows us to build on different ideas. So why not use, you know, Anheuser-Busch is one of the largest CPG companies in the world, right? And, you know, we have world-class partners like Samba TV, for example, that we work with on a day-to-day. You guys are the best in the space. So I would say for us, you know, why not use those resources to come together to build and educate one another to push our business forward, and as well as your business, right? So that we can all kind of succeed together, because that's what we want, right?
Totally. And you know, we've had so many conversations over about media in general, and I think one of the ones is always that multiple instances of an ad hitting your screen when you're streaming, and whether, while the data shows that, you know, all the eyeballs are moving to these streaming platforms, it's hard as a brand to get a firm understanding of what that unique reach looks like if you're over frequencing those environments, and are you actually driving incrementality. So do you want to talk a little bit more about why you picked Samba to help solve some of these challenges?
Yeah, sure. You know, there's nothing worse than getting a call from a VP or something saying, "Hey, I've seen this ad 30 times. What's going on?" So it's our job as digital marketers to kind of come up with those solutions. And as you know, CTV has been kind of the wild, wild west in terms of reach and frequency and different aggregators of partners. How do we select channels or networks? How do we select aggregators? These are all big questions that we thought about from a strategic standpoint of what partners we actually use. So while we were kind of answering those questions over the years, when we came up to this study, there was a lot of different research done. So what was really important to me? There was a couple pillars, I would say. One, we wanted to have a really balanced panel. We wanted to make sure that the data sources that we were using were realistic. You know, we wanted to make sure that the sample size was large enough so that we can have a really great purview into the entire market. So for example, as you were saying before, Samba can extrapolate to basically the US Census. So for us as a brand, that gives us a better picture of how many panels or how many people are associated with those panels to better understand this holistic view of buying. So that was data. I mean, you guys have, you know, tons and tons of devices, and the sample size was just huge. So I was very impressed by that, and that was definitely something that I focused on in terms of my research. Another thing was reporting cadence. So we know that a lot of different partners in this space, real-time optimizations wasn't something that was outside of, let's say, a DSP. And so, for example, when we're doing measurement studies, typically a lot of them don't tell you anything until 6 to 8 weeks out after the campaign's over. That means for me as a digital marketer, all my investments are already being done. I can't optimize and market. And if we have bad results, we're not going to know until 8 to 10 weeks out. So I wanted something that was going to be rapid, you know, rapid into market, and then also giving me the results and learnings while I'm still in market, so I can actually make mid-flight optimizations. And so what I found was a couple partners were able to do something that was, you know, within, let's say, a week or 3 days. Samba was one of those. So the reporting cadence for me was able, you know, that was just like definitely a shoo-in for me. Also, you know, data dumps are really stressful to look at. And if you're not super savvy in analytics, you know, you can get lost very quickly. So I would say something like a dashboard was really helpful for us, because one, it puts data in a way that's very easy to, I can check it out in the middle of my day, not have to read, you know, through Excels and Excels of data. And it's just super easy just to look at and slice up the data how I want between TV viewerships and ages and demographics and all that good stuff. So that for me also was a huge win with this partnership. And so overall too, I think, you know, this study would be nothing if we didn't have the linear TV aspect of it as well. So using our agency partner, for example, we're able to, you know, compare our linear TV buy in market to our CTV buy also in market to give that, you know, full picture into what is the right media mix. How can we evolve our TV buys potentially on the spot, right? And also evolve our CTV buys, and where there are opportunities to scale in terms of, you know, increasing our reach overall.
That's awesome.
No,
I'd like to jump in with a real quick question. It's certainly refreshing to hear a big company such as AB with deep roots in linear, embracing digital, and not just looking at the data, but actually actioning on it. And you guys are jumping on it. So can you speak to some of the things that you guys would look at in terms of, okay, this is looking a little off, we need to adjust our tactic mid-flight, just to kind of, you know, real example for those in the audience that are listening in?
Yeah, absolutely. So Katie and I actually this last week, we were trying to dig into this a bit, and this is a great example of how to use this tool for any marketer. For example, you go in and you look at, there's different pie charts, and you can look at different types of TV viewership for like light, medium, and heavy. And you can also break it out by age and demographics, for example. So what we were able to look at was basically how many people were unexposed to our ad, right? That's like that's what I'm looking for. I want to make sure that my ads get to the right people so that they can go to the store and go purchase my Michelob Ultra brand, right? So when we looked in the dash, we saw that there was a gap for unexposures, and we're like, how do we solve for that? So one of the ways that we looked into was basically using data segmentation through Samba. So for example, using an unexposed group, people that we know had not seen our linear TV ads, for example, or connected TV ads for that point, we could then basically create a segment of those people, create a cohort, then in the DSP, apply it so that we were super precise in our targeting to then effectively basically reduce the amount of unexposed and increase our digital exposures so that we can get that incremental reach that we're looking for. So that's a great example of basically going into the dashboard saying, how do we fix this? How do we look at this? And then having the DSP and Samba work together we got optimizations in market within like 2 days of that call. And we already saw some productive results, which Katie can talk about.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's still early days. It's been in market for about a week, but it's also nice to see when we're on the phone with your other partners that we're all seeing similar results. So again, kudos to you for pushing us and the market forward. I think, in kind of looking at, I love to think that like just because we're in data doesn't mean that we have to take the design element out of a dashboard. And so thank you to talking about that as well. How is AB taking advanced analytics and using this to streamline across departments? And how is that strengthening your teams?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really great question. And one, again, going back to that like collaborative space, I'm all about that because when you have the best resources in the room, you can actually do things that are incredible. So I know overall, like the word analytics can seem really daunting and stress people out that aren't necessarily in the media buying space, right? If it's not in their wheelhouse on a day-to-day, that's an uphill battle for me. Like, how do we make data sexy? How do we make analytics make sense to people that don't understand, regular things that I would on a day-to-day in the programmatic world? So for me, it's really important to, again, have ways of like, how do I educate internal stakeholders, external partners on this really important subject to actually move the needle for my business? So I would say, overall, this dashboard, going back to it, it's really easy to manipulate the data. Anybody that has, whether they have 10 years of experience in programmatic or maybe 1 or 2, can go and really look at it and say, hey, that's really interesting. This is really exciting stuff. How do we change this? Oh, I didn't know that about my business. Maybe I should start changing things. So for example, I can show this dashboard to like a senior brand person, or I can show it to a VP of analytics, and both of them can come to the table and say, hey, this makes a lot of sense to me. And, I've heard really great things from our brand teams being like, this is like the future. This is what we should be talking about. And to get somebody that's working just on brand communications on a day-to-day, get excited about data analytics and TV measurement, which seems so heady to so many people, that really gets me jazzed. And like, I get really psyched about like geeking out over this stuff and like making other people really passionate about it and actually wanting to make change and not just kind of say, oh, let's put this away and put it to bed and we won't ever talk about it again, because we want to push our business forward. And by using tools like this, it's allowed us to basically work really cross-functionally well with internal teams, external teams. And ultimately, I feel like, everyone wants to feel more educated and to speak more intelligently about marketing, especially in the digital world as it's growing every single day. And, this kind of allows us to have everyone feel like they're an active participant in the conversation, which is what we want. We want people to feel comfortable and confident and feel like they're a more educated marketer.
That's so great. Well, Jackie, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for talking with us in the 212 community. Thank you so much for your partnership. And I cannot wait to be back in New York and see you in real life sometime soon in the near future. Again, thank you guys.
Thank you so much, Katie.
And I believe right now, Mark and I are going to answer any of the questions that are coming in through the Q&A. Mark, is there anything in there that you see that you want to start with?
Yeah, I do see one. Someone asked, the decline in linear TV reach, is that a reflection of less subscriptions? And the answer is yes. When we say linear, we're referring to both cable as well as satellite subscriptions. And basically all the signs, all of the e-marketer reports and whatnot out there are predicting a decline in linear TV reach. And our data shows the same. So fewer and fewer households are subscribing, or another way to put it, more people are cutting the cord. That trend was already there. It's been accelerated as a result of the pandemic, where people don't have the same, financial situation to actually afford linear TV. So that's definitely an observation that we're continuing to see.
I see another one that looks really interesting. Do you see addressable as being the same as OTT CTV? Do you want to take that, or do you want me to, Mark?
Do I see addressable being the same as OTT CTV? So I think there's a few things there. Definition, let's get that out of the way. Our definition of OTT is over the top. So that's anything that's streaming over IP. So that can be mobile, tablet, desktop. CTV, we define as connected television. So this is the device that you're consuming streaming on, which is going to be the television. So CTV is something that's streaming on your TV, whether it be through a Fire TV, Roku, Apple TV, etc., or through a gaming console. So that's our definition of CTV. Addressable is really, when you look at the way we define it, is kind of like the set-top boxes, the cable subscriptions, where you're able to overlay data on top of that. So that's the definition. And then what was the question again, to be specific, Katie?
Oh, the question was, do you see addressable as being the same as OTT and CTV?
Okay. Yeah, so not necessarily the same. Some people say addressable is just the ability to layer on audience characteristics on top of for targeting purposes. So I guess the way to look at it is like CTV and OTT, they're both digital. So therefore you have some deeper understanding and deeper targeting capabilities that you can layer on. So I think the benefits of addressable and CTV OTT are comparable. Addressable from a volume standpoint will be less than what you get from connected television and OTT.
Yeah, and I'd also take it a step further, because our industry is so confusing, right? Because they could also mean addressable as in addressable TV or advanced TV or ATV. And when I think of CTV, I think that adding an addressable layer to CTV like very much complements whatever any advertiser is doing in the addressable space, because it's allowing you to reach with the same kind of indicators. So whether that's in a pod through your linear commercial schedule, or that's through a CTV environment, it's really being able to pinpoint that right person at the right time.
Exactly. And then to add some clarity to my comment earlier around why the volume is greater for CTV and OTT. When I think addressable, I think these are the operators that can actually do this. So think of, the AT&Ts, the Verizons, the folks that have those cable subscriptions. Those are the ones that can actually support the addressable targeting capabilities.
I've got another one coming at you, Mark. So with all these viewership habits shifting, can you that you talked about earlier, what are some of the predictions you have for the next 12 to 24 months? So Mark, can you see the future?
My crystal ball is not exactly clearer than others that are out there, but I think I would predict further fragmentation in terms of how people are consuming. The obvious one, which I already mentioned, is more people cutting the cord. But I think one of the things is very clear, as Jackie was saying earlier, is you have a lot of the big brands, a lot of the folks with deep budgets for linear, embracing digital. I think the sophistication that we've seen from Jackie and her team is going to become the norm. We're going to see a lot more folks that have been active in linear get active in digital. We'll probably see a convergence in the video teams, the linear and the digital. We'll start to see those come together, where a lot of the digital video, whether they're just all programmatic, or when it came to CTV, that was more of an experimental budget area. We're seeing a lot more people jump into the pool in the CTV space. So which has of course attracted all of those publishers that I mentioned to adopt their direct to consumer and their streaming investments. So I think the digital space is definitely here to stay, and it's making big waves in the industry for sure. And then, which also just means that people have to keep a close eye on measurement. The old ways of measuring linear are not going to cut it. So people need a holistic approach that's going to cover all of the various channels.
That's great. And then we've got another one on measurement coming at us. And so this one is, how have you been looking at attribution from a linear and CTV OTT standpoint? And how are you attributing lift in sales / brand to different channels? You know, I can take that one if you want. So in addition to our reach and frequency dashboards, we also do conversion-based studies. So we're able to see if someone is tuned in to a program, if someone has gone to a website, if someone has walked into a store. We also have partnered with Catalina to understand what the effect is on overall return on your ad spend, and if there is actual sales lift for brands. So these are a lot of different channels that we are looking and trying to help our brand partners solve.
Yeah, there are a number. I mean, we can't understate the number of different partners that we work closely with to measure brand awareness, brand sentiment. So these are things that you almost have to go with the best in breed solutions across the spectrum to measure all the various ways that marketers will want to attribute the success of their campaigns, for sure.
I have a quick question. So when it comes to LDA compliance, so for example, for Anheuser-Busch, you have to see opt-in from 21 plus. Does that affect or skew the data, or is the scale there to be able to measure in that kind of way when you have like a liquor or beverage brand that needs to get a certain audience?
So I can also take that one. From a measurement point of view, it's really just about making sure that you're able to get the reach, so that we work with all of our LDA compliant advertisers through either LDA compliant CTV lists. They also have LDA compliant parameters that they put in through their DSPs. So it's just making sure that there's enough good inventory that is in fact 21 plus for marketers to run in. And I know this year in CTV is going to be really fun going into the political climate that's gearing up. So right now, everyone I know is doing fine. I think that all of us are a little bit worried about what's going to happen to our CTV reach overall come September through November.
There is a question here about sales and brand lift. I think you discussed that. There's another one here around, you mentioned that you work with several smart TV brands. What's the benefit of working with more versus one? We actually have a pretty strong stance here. And I think the short answer is it all comes down to representativeness. As Katie mentioned earlier, we do have a panel which is matches with the US Census. It's distributed across all the DMAs, matches everything from household size and the composition. So we know not all TV brands are created equal. By looking at just one brand, it might fit into a certain price point, which is going to attract a certain demographic. So by working with a diverse set of TV manufacturing partners, it allows us to basically cast a wide net and ensure representativeness when it comes to the panel that we measure on.
Yeah, that's correct. I like to think about it in the sense of we look at smart TV manufacturers are called OEMs. And when I hear the word OEM, I always thought auto OEM. And someone who buys a Chevy or a household that's a Chevy owning household looks a little bit differently than a BMW or a Porsche owning household. And in order to get a clear view into the viewership of the US population, you need to have all of those different cars in your data set.
Interesting question here. Can you explain more on CTV reach due to political? Like, why would reach be more limited during political? That's a very interesting question. I think there are a few different things here. I think one easy one is that some publishers just want to stay away from polarizing topics. So political, as usual, with it, can get into mudslinging and whatnot. So some people just say, you know what, they want to take the high road. They want to not deal with that at all. Take a la Twitter, for example. So that's one. Other cases, folks often charge higher rates when it comes to political, which might make it an out of reach situation for some folks that want to run political ads. I think those are kind of the two high level things that point out to me, which is reach, and then just a lot of publishers being sensitive to not wanting to subject their users to that and compromise the user experience. Anything you'd want to add on to that, Katie?
Well, and I think it's just, supply and demand. I think we're going to see more political dollars come into the system than we've ever seen before. And so it's just a sheer fact of, Jay was asking about sensitive inventory clearing. And right now, I think that, we work very closely with all of our sensitive clients, whether it be an alcohol brand or whatnot. But there's only so many impressions out there, even though that more people are moving to streaming. So I think it's going to be an interesting Q3, Q4 for sure. And I, shameless plug to Samba, we have a ton of CTV inventory, so you can come talk to us.
That we do. And one more comment on political that just came to mind. Another reason why reach might be limited is typically with political buys, you're going to have heavy targeting that's layered on alongside with it, where they're going to either be targeting certain swing districts, DMAs. So you're going to have DMA targeting. You're going to also have registered party targeting. So I want to target a certain political party. So that's what we've typically seen when it comes to political. So all of these things, as everyone knows, whenever you layer on aggressive targeting, you're going to whittle down the pool that is applicable for a certain campaign. Is Samba TV DSP agnostic? Do you work with multiple DSPs to execute programmatic video? Short answer is yes. We work with a couple of different SSPs, and those SSPs have pipes into all of the major DSPs. So we're certainly agnostic on that front.
And if you happen to be a certain DSP that we're not hooked up into, you should definitely give Mark a call, and he'll make sure that we get you hooked up.
Indeed. All right. What else do you see here? How is post-performance being provided? Katie, I believe you did speak to that a little bit via the dashboard as the primary fashion of us delivering post-performance.
Yeah, we have a number of different reports. Like I stated, we have our reach and frequency reports, we have conversion-based reports, we have tune-in reporting, and then we also have a number of partners that we work with for brand sentiment, brand awareness, as well as sales lift.
All right, I did see another one. What are some cost-effective ways to reach your audience without linear TV? Jackie did talk about this as well, right? I mean, there of course you can lean in linear, and the big benefit with linear is this instant reach. You have a number of people who are consuming that live TV, so when you run a linear campaign, you're just going to be able to blast it out. At the same time, the benefits of digital is that you get precision, and many would say with precision, that's minimizing waste, because you actually are paying for reaching the audiences that fit within your tactics. So I believe it's best to just make sure you understand, what are the objectives, whether it's reach broadly and just brand awareness, or whether it's actually reaching your certain households, and then understanding, okay, what is the next action that you want to drive, whether it's simple brand awareness, driving a purchase, driving into a store. And then the better you are at kind of attributing those impressions all the way down, then you can then optimize how you spend and ensure that you're operating in a cost-effective fashion.
Are there any other questions from the group? I feel like we've answered a lot that's in the Q&A. Anything else that you would like to say, Mark?
No, I mean, this is something that is, this topic is near and dear to our hearts. So definitely we're always looking to continue the dialogue, learn as well as educate. So very happy for everyone who joined in.
I have one last question. So as we 212 continue to build out kind of our future and thinking about what's ahead, Mark, you said you don't have a crystal ball, but if you did, can you end with kind of what are your few thoughts on how the next 2 years shape up in terms of the TV, CTV, OTT environment? What do you expect to change? What do you expect to stay the same? Tell us about your crystal ball if you had one.
No, I didn't say I didn't have one. I have one. I just said it wasn't that much clear. It's like Mrs. Cleo status. But yeah, it's. I think we're just gonna continue to see the adoption of streaming. And I would never say that linear is going to die. The power of real time that you get from news and sports will always keep linear relevant. The big thing that I would predict is that we're going to see, like I said, more advertisers and brands jumping into the CTV space. In the past, CTV was considered taboo because you had a couple of the big broadcasters that people recognized, and they thought everything else was just UGC or cat videos. So we are definitely seeing advertisers recognize that there are a lot of options when it comes to CTV and jumping into it. And I think what I can't underscore enough is just the importance of measurement, because as Jackie was saying, they're working with a number of different partners and they use that to keep everyone honest. And so I think that open approach is definitely going to become more of the norm, as opposed to folks standardizing on, old school currencies that they've had access to for the past. So everything's being accelerated now as a result of COVID and the pandemic that we're facing, that people need to be eyes wide open and smart and real time and reactive in order to optimize their spend. So I wouldn't say that's really an earth-shattering revelation, but that's something that we're certainly seeing and speaking a lot more with active marketers about recently.
I think that's a wrap for our panel. Thank you, Mark, Katie, and Jackie. Really appreciate you guys, diving in deep, as we say, and really sharing great insights. I think that's it. So we look forward to future panels with Samba, and 212NYC really appreciates you guys coming to the table with these insights and these suggestions and throwing it down. So thank you.